Good morning, Florida. It is Friday, the 3rd of April, and day one of your state mandated staycation. Uh, Welcome to my world. We've been here in the Czech Republic for, I don't know, like 17 days or something. And we still haven't started killing each other, which is good. So today I'm going to look at a couple of things. In the end, I'm going to give you some suggestions for how you can basically keep cool, keep calm, and keep yourself from going crazy while you are in kind of like this isolated world. As always, I want to kind of mention a couple of like shout outs, like, good and bad things about what's happening right now in the state of Florida and in the United States as a whole. And like previous videos, I've pointed out that this is not political, and like, there's like good and bad on both sides. And yeah, I would like to start out with one just yet again another failure of leadership and competence from the great state of Wisconsin, with their Democratic governor, who for some reason thinks that holding a primary election in the middle of a pandemic where the cases in his state are increasing significantly, that the primary cannot be postponed. Okay. But if you look at another Midwestern state with a Republican governor, Governor DeWine in Ohio, he fought tooth and nail to get that primary postponed. Okay, now let me explain a couple of things for you guys, because again, this is like forward thinking. They're not necessarily talking about this so much on the news in the States, but here's the deal. All right, the general election's in November. That's a long way away, all right? I can understand where some of these states do feel a little bit pressured to have their primaries because, the conventions are coming up. Well, here's the deal. There's absolutely nothing written in law about when the conventions have to take place. Political conventions are, held by the political parties. So do not be surprised if those political conventions do not happen in July. Those political conventions might actually be pushed back as far as, September, even late September. A lot of things have to happen before you're going to have a situation where you're going to have delegates, flying into one place. So I think in Milwaukee, I think actually is the Democratic convention actually, and I would actually, if I was the Democratic Party right now, because even his own party is like, what the fuck are you doing, you idiot? We can't do this now. They need to tell him that, you need to move the primary now, or we don't have to have the Democratic convention in Milwaukee. You can lose that money. It's that simple. Because he's he's risking people's lives for whatever reason. But the bottom line is it's a lack of leadership and it's incompetence. This doesn't have to happen now. This can be later. And apologies to the Bernie Sanders people, but it's over. Okay? I like him. I live in Europe. A lot of the things that he says, I know because I've lived here for almost 20 years. Yeah, they're nice. But, try again in 4 years. It's over. I know, mathematically possible, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, there's a difference between mathematical possibility and, things like certainty or likelihood. Okay? Yes, Bernie Sanders has a mathematical possibility, but that mathematical possibility is less than 1%. That's like 0% certainty or practically 0% likelihood. So the Bernie Sanders people just really need to, and I know this is going to be difficult for the millennials, but they really need to kind of like start and get over the grieving process of this as soon as possible, because it adds nothing. It causes harm, and this is not me being undemocratic. It's just, the pandemic is the primary thing that we should be focusing all of our energy on now, and not some primary elections. I mean, like what other races are on the ballot in Wisconsin that are so important that they have to be solved now? I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. There are these governors like, I'm going to be decisive, and I know, in the United States, and especially in Eastern Europe, also where I live, one of the key things that people like is like, someone being decisive. I'm going to make a decision, but those decisions can be good or bad. Like if you're like decisive and dumb, that does nobody any good. And then on the other hand, for example, like, so on the other negatives would be like, of course, there are 10 states left in the United States. There are 10 states left where you don't have the stay-at-home orders, and I don't want to say of course, but it will not come as a shock to hardly anybody that these 10 states are led by Republican governors, are the states that usually perform towards the bottom in terms of healthcare, in terms of education. As I've mentioned several times, Louisiana is trying to do a good job in containment, and their neighbors are not helping them. I mentioned yesterday the actual situation, what's going to happen in Kentucky because of Tennessee. You can't allow these people to be like pouring over the borders from a safe state, or so from a catastrophe state into a safe state, because then that safe state will become like a catastrophe state also. So some of you people that voted for these crazy people, this is that thing, like, be careful what you wish for, because you may get it. And some of you right now are getting it, especially in Alabama. Again, I talked about her, Kay Ivey. She has the lieutenant governor who's also a Republican, who's clever and actually had a plan, but politically for her, it wasn't a good plan, because like, God forbid she saved lives. God forbid she make a decision which will actually prevent her state, which already has a very, very dodgy healthcare system and health insurance also. God forbid she make a decision that will save lives. And again, if I were DeSantis now, I would be putting state troopers on all road crossings and river crossings, probably, if there are any. I'm sure there are some, between the state of Alabama and the state of Florida. Florida needs to be protected from Alabama. I know it sounds ridiculous that I'm saying that. In Europe, we close the borders. We've got checkpoints on all of our road crossings. And, commercial traffic is good. We need the commercial traffic to go because, like the European Union, like the United States of America, we've got our open borders for travel, but also for commercial things, that needs to stay open. Maintaining what economy we can now will give us the foundation to help grow our economy, after this crisis is over. But, oh God, I have family there also, which is just awful. One small wing of my family a few decades ago, basically had their kind of like hold my beer moment, like, hold my beer, I'm going to Alabama, and I feel terrible for them. They grew up in this state. I have cousins there, and they grew up in this state, and they have kind of like the Alabama mentality. And I want to help them. It's one of the reasons I make these videos. I just hope, my family in Florida and Georgia, like, they listen. They're kind of like taking what I'm saying to heart. They've been really adapting to these conditions, really, really early, and that's a good thing. But just some of these states, you just like. It's basically kind of like, almost like you would think there would be some kind of like criminal liability, for what some of the decisions that some of these governors are making. Like I guess the border checks. This has to be like America wide. You need the national government to do this. You need to have border checks on all the border crossings between the states, because you need to separate the good from the bad. Because if one state is actually doing a good job of containment, and their neighbor completely collapses. And this is not, like the sky is falling. The sky is falling. This is true. You most likely will have a situation in some of these states where, you're going to be really close to collapse. Sorry, I mean that's just the reality, because there has been a complete. I mean, there's been a lack of kind of like leadership and intelligence at the top in a lot of these places, in the federal government also, from both parties. I mean, and I mean, Florida, like, congratulations, like, you're starting your staycation today. The next step is going to be the masks. You need to get on that right now. When you leave your house, you have to have a mask. That's it. The White House is kind of like slowly sticking their toe into that water, into the mask water. And, every time the White House sticks their toe in it, they usually jump in a couple days later, because they're testing to see what the reaction is going to be. They have to test and see kind of like, what's the reaction on Fox News going to be, because Fox News basically determines, like, what you guys do, which is just ridiculous, because like I said before, you're listening to a bunch of paid actors. But you need to get the masks today. And I've said this, go online. The thing with the t-shirts, it works, okay? T-shirt material, 3 layers of that cotton, 70% protection, just like that. That's a fact. I have checked these numbers. I will never give you a number that has not been checked and checked and checked. And the other thing is, I've mentioned this before, if you have the type of vacuum cleaner that has vacuum cleaner bags on it, brilliant, or see if your neighbor, see if somebody, like, you can get one, but of course wash it off and don't touch them, your neighbor. Yeah, like, if you can get the vacuum cleaner bags and just cut them to the shape of the mask and sew them in between the cotton, the vacuum cleaner masks, it was like, I think, God, it was like 85%. I mean, like, of course, like I said, I'm not gonna lie to you, but it was in that really, it was definitely way above 80, okay, for the protection. So if you put the vacuum cleaner bag, cut it, put it between the t-shirt material, I mean, you've got a lot of protection for yourself, but also to protect the other people, because you don't know if you have it or not. And like I said before, even if you are asymptomatic, like, it means that you don't have symptoms, but you still have the virus and you don't know, you can still give it to people, okay? This has been kind of like an American myth, that, the rest of us kind of like, we figured this out a long time ago. Even though you don't have symptoms, you can still, by breathing, and touching things, you can still spread the virus. Okay, so you need to get on the masks. You need to create your own little ninja nation, like I said we had here in the Czech Republic for the last 2.5 weeks, because everyone's got face masks on, hoodies, because it's still cold a little bit. So we all look like ninjas. It's kind of fun. You can do it with your kids that way. We're going to be ninjas, or you can paint them. You can do all kinds of things to them. But this needs to become a normal thing, like daily already. Florida. All right, so you guys are on staycation now. I'm happy about that. It starts today. The other thing is that they also suspended evictions and foreclosures in Florida. This is also a really, really good thing. Now, I know some of the conservative people are not happy about these measures, because those poor people, it's which is generally kind of like a conservative kind of like mentality in the UK and in the United States. It's this WASP thing. We like to punish people. But here's the deal. In order to stop the spread of the virus, you need everyone to stay home. And in order for them to stay home, they have to have one. So, there was 7 million new the jobless claims in the last 10 days or something. So a lot of people are going to be out of work. All right. The people that own these apartments or houses that they are renting now, I have had this discussion with people. I have some of my family. They own rental properties everywhere in Florida, and people that they have their real estate as investments. Here's the thing about owning real estate. It's a gamble. It's an investment. Every single investment you make, there's no guarantee that you're always going to get money, unless basically you own slaves or something. The market goes up and down, but also, there are other factors and things. You're not always going to have this, secured income by renting to people and owning property. Okay, and if they ever, like that needs to be clear to those people. Okay, it also needs to be clear to the people that live there if your landlord is giving you problems about this. Because here's the thing, like, and the landlords have to be really, really intelligent. Like, if even though now they can't, but if they can kick somebody out, who the hell is going to rent your? I mean, like, who the hell is going to rent the flat or the house or the apartment? Because nobody's going to have jobs. Basically, the best thing that you can do now is allow those people to stay there. And what little money they do have, they will be spending basically on food. So at least some money is going into the local economy. Because we need to, like, if we have the extra money, we need to try to do as much as we can now. So after this crisis, at least we have some kind of foundation economically that we can build on. The other thing that Florida needs to do, and other states and other nations have done this also, and I'll explain why, but again, some of the conservatives will not be happy because, like, oh, you're giving free shit away, is they also have to block the, you cannot turn off someone's electricity, you cannot turn off someone's water, and you also cannot turn off somebody's cable and internet. Okay? This is the reason why. First of all, you can't tell people, to wash their hands and stuff like that if you turn their water off. And they need hot water to cook stuff to kind of like keep things sanitized, so obviously they need electricity. Also, in order to have like the water heaters working to do that, but you also need the electricity in order to have the lights and then also to have the electronic devices and your chargers working and those types of things, because the people need to have information. But additionally, the thing about the cable and the internet is that now everyone has to stay home. And you need to give these people every single thing they possibly can to have a reason to stay home. And one of those things is access to entertainment and information and these types of things, but also communication, because you're going to be home for a long time. Like the space capsule. That's what I'm saying. Like we're all going to be in our little space capsules with our family, like lost in space, and it's going to be stressful. So you need to develop some survival skills. This is not surviving in the forest survival skills. These are like real, like, surviving in the spaceship skills. Because you don't want to get cabin fever. We don't want to come back in October, maybe when all this is over, and have to send dogs under the crawl space under everyone's houses in Florida, if you have a crawl space. I know that's like an up north thing, to find all the bodies. Because you have to stay home. So like in South Florida, you can't take your uncle that pissed you off, and chuck him into the Everglades for the alligators to eat, which is kind of like the thing to do there, because you can't leave the house. So you're going to be stuck with the body. So we need to develop skills and techniques to prevent that type of a situation. Because I don't really think you're going to be able to go out and buy a bunch of acid to dissolve the bones. All right, now. So that's the thing. So you need to, those of you, and some of you actually have been like calling the governor. I was really surprised. I got messages that people were doing that. Yeah, you need to make sure that they pass a law quickly or make a decree that you cannot turn off the electricity or the water or the internet or cable. Okay, because we need those people to be at home. We need to give them reasons to stay at home, and we need to seriously decrease the potential mental health crisis which this is going to create. Because there is going to be a huge mental health issue, with these staycations. There's actually a word they've already created. It's called isolation fatigue. It's cute at the beginning, but then, as you go on, it gets more difficult. You get on people's nerves, okay? I made one other video earlier last week about the scheduling thing. I'll touch on that just like briefly again. So, and I'll probably have to make another video with graphics once I learn how to do that, to explain that. So you need to have a schedule, okay? You need to have a schedule for every single person who's going to be in your dwelling during your staycation, the stay-at-home order. And you need to basically schedule in alone time daily. That has to be a huge thing. You also need to have some group activities. One of the things that I recommended was having kind of like the French lunch, because in France, traditionally they have these big lunches where all the family is there. And that kind of seems like a really, really nice idea to start doing in Florida or in the United States where you have these isolation things because, you wake up and you have everything scheduled, everybody in the house, you schedule work, you schedule play, you schedule cleaning, household things because everybody needs to be doing that, It helps with the monotony, but it also kind of like gives structure to everyone's life because you have to have structure in this. You cannot freestyle this. If you freestyle this, you're going to start going crazy after the first 4 or 5 days. Okay? The other thing is like, for example, like siesta. Like you have a big lunch with your family, and then like after that, schedule 2 hours. 2 hours, like everyone could go to their own rooms or their own corners or whatever to have me time, to have naps. I try to have a nap like 35, 40 minutes every single day with the bulldog. We call them bulldog naps. He knows that. We have lunch and then we just kind of like go into the bedroom and just like crash. So these types of things, like giving structure. Exercise. I started doing something this week and I've gained so much weight in the last 3 weeks. Really, I'm completely and totally the last couple of days, it's really kind of like, it's been a bit upsetting. So I'm basically now, I'm like, okay, mentally I'm fine. Like I've got this thing down, but now I really have to start, focusing on this because I'm like carb loading and I'm just kind of like carb overloading. And I actually have a belly. I haven't had a belly forever. And I'm kind of like thick, I have all this kind of like visceral fat that I never had. And so I started doing this thing where I have like Alexa, and every 15 minutes while I'm doing administrative work, which is like hours and hours and hours every day, and like for 2 or 3 hours, I start doing these 15-minute reminder things where it's like an alarm, and I get up and I go do like 90 seconds of exercise. Like I'll do like 10 pull-ups, which this morning were difficult. 2 days ago, I was like, yay, 20. And this morning I was like 6. And I don't know if it's just because my muscles are tired or because I'm just that fat. So I'm like, God, it's too fat. So like, anyway, so like I do push-ups and that, for 90 seconds. So I pee or refill my coffee or refill my water or something and I come back. So it's kind of like, I'll have like, 10 minutes of work and then break and then, so over the hour, I did like 60 push-ups and 40 pull-ups, something like that, but I also got a lot of work done because I also had kind of like 45 minutes of, work, but I also had like, in that hour I had, 6 minutes, probably of actual exercise, but I also managed to kind of like pee, get my stuff and kind of like, reset my brain a little bit because like you can't sit in front of that computer. But this if you actually have an office job, it's really difficult to sit there and focus for this amount of time. For teachers, this is something new. We don't do this. A lot of us spend most of our time kind of like standing in front of people and interacting with them. And we do have some kind of like administrative stuff, but it's not every day. And now with the e-teaching, it's like every day, we're like in front of the computer having to like, watching presentations, doing consultations, marking things. And so like I've basically kind of like broken my day into these small little blocks just to keep my body moving and to keep my mind fresh because this is going to be a bit difficult. A couple of more things. So in Florida, so like you had some brief information. You guys already know this because you watched the news, but I just want to go back to what I was talking about before, just to show you that I was not bullshitting you. So the cases now are 9,000. In the Czech Republic, we're like 3,700 or something like that. So you've blown past us in a few days. You've got 1,200 like severe cases, so like the ICU bed, ventilator things. You've had almost 150 deaths. But like I told you before, even last week, they had the map of Florida, and you had all these counties that had 0. And I told you, I said those zeros are meaningless. That people there definitely have this because like I said, like the American government for some reason has really kind of like been slow to recognize that this virus, you can pass it if you don't have symptoms, And this has been, this is not kind of like a well maybe. No, this is a definite thing, and especially with that long, it's highly virulent, which means like you can spread it really easily, but it also has like a very very long, period between the moment of infection and the first symptoms. But like that's the whole. One of the problems is, if you are if you get infected and you are asymptomatic, which basically means your body deals with the virus, your immune system can kill the virus basically, and then build the antibodies without giving you the symptoms. But during that period, you can still spread the virus. So I was looking at the map today, and yeah, exactly. All those counties, especially between Tallahassee and Pensacola, like in northwest Florida, they're all filling in. For example, I saw three places where there were not any cases so far. One was Hamilton County, which is kind of like north of Live Oak, and it's between Live Oak and Lake City near Valdosta. Yeah, it's a real small county. Not many people live there, but it's coming. And the other two of note were, let's see, Jefferson County, which is just east of Tallahassee, with Monticello, and south of Tallahassee, Taylor County with Perry. And I don't know if they don't have any testing there, because I've seen like in Florida, you guys really haven't tested a whole lot. And the testing situation there is really, really bad. So, all the information that you do have about Florida, the one thing you have to understand is that the numbers that they're giving you, there's only two. You have confirmed cases. That's accurate. Basically, but that just tells you like this is how many positive cases they have found. The most accurate number you have in Florida basically is just like how many people have died. And even within the United States, I saw the CDC is missing 50% of the information about the tests. So you have like low testing, faulty testing, and then faulty reporting. So, it's really difficult to paint an accurate picture in Florida or in the United States in most places because of the issues with testing, availability of tests, reliability of tests, collection of data, submission of data to the correct people. So, the numbers are higher, all right? And I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to make you you can't feel complacent. You need to feel really, really diligent, and the masks will help with that. As soon as you put a mask on and go out into public and see other people in masks, your guard will be up. Trust me. We are way into gloves and masks here. Yeah, it's almost a fetish, but we're doing that just to keep ourselves safe. Like for example, like one other issue, the ventilators in America. Here, and I mentioned this before, but I saw some news. I saw some news specifically in the United States about this morning. Was that you had like there was people from MIT, but also people from Oxford University in England who had developed, some kind of prototype for the ventilators. And, but there's an issue because, the government doesn't know how to govern. There are laws there that are in place that people can use to do this, and they're just not doing it. And like, for example, like I mentioned before, like, in the Czech Republic last week, we crowdsourced or crowdfunded 1,000 ventilators in 24 hours because at the technical university here, there was a group, I don't know, the professors and students together, I'm not sure who the makeup of the group, and they developed a technique to make ventilators from components from pre-existing devices, that were not necessarily needed right now. And, they did that in 24 hours. They posted it, and then boom, it's the information spread here, virally, ironically. We had 1,000 ventilators. 500 of them will be delivered in the next 2 weeks, and then we'll have an extra 500 after that. And at that point, maybe we might not even need that many, and we'll be able to send them to somebody who does. For example, the United States. But however, probably the United States wouldn't take them because you guys are still living in this regulatory, you still have this regulatory structure, like you think that matters now, you know? Yeah, you can skip steps here, you know? You can. Um, we've learned here in the states, you've learned this recently also, you know, kind of constitutions and laws sometimes are kind of like, meh, meh. You know, those are just words on paper. And sometimes necessity, you know, should overrule precedent. You know, like these, I mean, like it makes no sense to me. I mean, if you have people at MIT that are telling you they can do this, you need to give them the money. You know, and if your government won't do it, you need to crowdsource it. Because I guarantee you, there are some emergency rooms or some medical facilities that they will sign a check. You know, if you can get those ventilators made through crowdfunding or whatever, do it. You know, who the hell is going to sue a hospital after all of this? Well, you know, they used a ventilator on my mother that wasn't properly approved by the FDA. I mean, she lived, but you know, like she's got psychological damage. Because there are people in the United States that will do that. You know this. Everyone in America knows this. You know, it's one of the reasons why. That's probably one of the main reasons why your healthcare system is so expensive, is because you have like idiots with lawyers. You know, but do it. Try. You guys need to be creative. You can't rely on the government to do it, because the government basically kind of like, we've seen that you know, a lot of parts of the government, they are just failing because, you know, they're just totally incompetent. So, you know, you need to think outside of the box. One of my friends, like one of my good friends from high school, she was we shared a lot of classes. I think we were in elementary school together. Her name's Tracy. Like when we were in high school, I had this PE class. We did one required PE class, because most of us just took PE in the summer. Like all my friends, we would go to summer school on purpose, you know, take PE because it was a lot of fun. And, you know, because it's too hot to go outside, because we would basically stay in the gym in the air conditioning and play volleyball and cards and stuff. And she used to sign me out. Or she would sign. She was like the girl who had the attendance for the PE coach, and she would always put me as being there, even though I never was. I was always kind of like hanging out with Miss Crockett in the library. I don't even know how. I look back at that. I mean, it happened so often. I was kind of like, how the hell did Mrs. Crockett, like? I mean, she knew I was cutting out on PE to go hang out and read books. Nobody got caught. I got an A somehow. So that was Tracy Orihuela. Yeah. No. Anyway, so she posted this thing that one of her kids, somewhere like in Pasco County, had either developed or started. He had a 3D printer and started making masks or respiratory protection things from the 3D printer, which is amazing. You know. And so I sent that. One of my clients here is a professor of robotics and information technology. He's one of my. We do English, but also I do translations and corrections for him. Like last year, something like chaos theory. You know, like. But. You know, so I sent him this. I'm like, look what this kid's doing. He's like 16 years old. Look what this 16-year-old kid's doing in my home county in Florida. You know, it was so funny. And he actually sent them a picture. He sent me back to this picture of they had used. Cause I know they have 3D printers there, because he's got all these little toys and things on his desk that I'm always playing with. That they're all 3D printed, and yeah. So they were doing the shields. You know, which that's kind of like hardcore. You know, because you have the face mask and the shield. The shield is against kind of like the coughing or the spraying. Yeah, and they were making them here, like at the technical university. You know, they got like a basement full of like, you know, the spools of the material that they use for the 3D printers. Yeah, and they were just printing them and kind of like just sending them to medical centers and hospitals, like boom, normally. You know. So, you know, there are things that you can do or things that people can do to help that, you know, go around the government, you know, to get, you have to take action. So if you've got some extra cash, you know, maybe go to crowdfunding, go to those sources and see if you can't find people that are doing these types of things. and like just throw them a couple bucks. For example, if you're on my Facebook page, it's like Tracy Orihuela. Maybe you can write her a message and see like if that kid actually or the group that he's working with, find out if they need cash, because the materials that they use to feed those 3D printers, it's kind of expensive. But again, that probably is something they could probably order on Amazon and just have delivered. That's safe. And they're helping people. So like, think out of the box. But also, like start thinking about what you're going to be doing inside your house and your families to give a little bit of structure, so you guys don't go crazy. Because, once this is over, we need to start rebuilding the economy and getting back to normal. And, we can't, there definitely will be like a mental health price tag attached to this. But, we need to do our part collectively to keep that mental health crisis, keep it as like, as small as possible. So you're not going to be just sitting home on your ass like, like, I hate this is so boring, like I want to go outside. Now, your job, you've got a couple of responsibilities thing, this is called solidarity. You are, you're not working for yourself, you're working for, humanity. I know for some of you that's really, really difficult, especially the libertarians, and you're like everybody. Yeah, so, like you are keeping your neighbors safe, you're keeping the old people safe, you're keeping the ill people safe, by maintaining your staycation. You're going to have to wear masks when you go out for the same thing. You need to shop. You like if you have money, if you have a little bit of extra money, you need to keep buying stuff. Like every once in a while, like go do that takeout from the restaurant thing. Try to spread the money. If you have some money, you need to try to spread it a little bit. To kind of like at least keep some economic activity going. So we have a basis after this is over to expand the economy. We at least we'll have a good place to start off from. But also the mental health. You also need to make sure that you're doing whatever you can. To keep your mental health, as positive as possible. I know it's difficult. I mean, this is like really, really awful. Even for me, I've mentioned that. I'm sitting here and I'm in a really safe country because we did our job, but it's stressful. It's stressful for me. Basically, I've mentioned this because like I feel guilty because I've got food, I'm getting fat, I've got Netflix, and I've got all these things. I have a lot of work also. Like I'm gonna be fine, but I feel bad for the other people because it in so many places on the planet now, it's a the whole planet it's a catastrophe. But like, the suffering is acute. It's hellish in so many places, and I feel guilty that it's like survivor's guilt almost. So you guys really need to take some time to think about how you're going to organize your space capsule life. To make sure that your mental health at least will stay at a decent level, so we don't have this kind of like grotesque mental health crisis in 4 months, 5 months after this is over, because you're going to be there in Florida. You're going to be there for. I mean, I'll be honest with you. 100%, you've got a month. Absolutely. That's just the truth. We've already been on this for a few weeks, and they've extended us to the end of the month. So that's 7 weeks, and we're flat. You guys are, so you need to accept the fact that you're going to be there for a while. All right, I will leave it at that. This is a little bit longer than I wanted. But like I'm happy that you guys finally got the stay-at-home order. I know that some of you really hate this idea, but you're helping people. By doing nothing, you're actually helping people. So enjoy your first Friday free, whatever. And yeah, keep the questions coming. Like some of you, like it's really funny. Like people comment, they just send me messages on Facebook or something like that. Yeah, like keep the questions coming. I'll get to you. But I'm on like 150 something messages, like students every single day. So it's work. It's work. Trying to stay like sane is also a little bit of work. But we got this. So anyway, have a nice day and see you all tomorrow.